Critics of green building say that it is too expensive and has a lot of hidden waste. But yet, a lot of those same critics would nod their head and easily agree with Benjamin Franklin when he said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So this is kind of, as far as what we do as timber framing, we're going to touch on how Benjamin Franklin's statement can help us have our green building cake and eat it too. We're going to touch on two things. So the one is pretty obvious. Well, first let me touch on what we're known for, and then we'll go into how we align with green building. So this is a project that we did. It was a remodel, and this was the before picture. And here's the after. And there's some invisible green building fruit in that picture that we'll talk about a little bit later. This is typical for what we do, whether it's a blueprint or a remodel. We really work with the canvas, making the big picture bright, and the timbers that fit with that. And it does align with green building. But real simply, in some ways, we're always green because we're always working with wood. So just a little help here. How does it align with green building? What are some of the good factors of wood?
Carbon mitigation.
Bingo, that's number 4. Anyone else?
Renewable. Sustainable.
Renewable, yes. Next. Sustainable. So Jared's right there. Waste reduction. So with this, the big 3 for building around the world is wood, concrete, and steel. And of those 3, wood has a fraction of the energy required to bring it from natural resource to a functional building. So that's how it's waste reduction. And then you look at heating and cooling, the thermal transfer, I think, is the biggest factor here, but typically wood buildings have less cost over the life of the building to use them. So that's a savings. And then the carbon sink mentioned over here, that's a big one. In fact, I was given this book, New Carbon Architecture. That's one of the big points in here. There's a lot of contributing authors. But carbon sink is a huge deal, the CLTs, and that's how timbers really align with green building. And that's no news to anybody, but so that's one piece of how what we do is in alignment with energy conservation. The big kahuna is really back to Benjamin Franklin's statement, has to do with planning. This ounce of prevention is the planning part of it. So as a favor to all you, as a plea, I guess, from all you builders here, if we could have you all hit the timeout when you're meeting your clients at first and right size 2 things. First one is the time that it's going to take to plan. Most people, you hear it all the time that, man, we wanted to be building 6 months ago, and now we're here, we're doing this, and what they don't realize is that more than half of that equation is them getting their feet underneath them, understanding what they want. We're going to give away 2 books at the end of this, tell you how. This one here, provided you pass it on like I was given. And this one, chapter 4, talks about a tree growing roots before there's growth. And if clients can understand this and really get their plans figured out, that's going to save a lot of extra square footage they didn't need, bright shiny objects that are energy intensive. And so that's one way to right size clients when you're meeting them at first. The second way is with the money picture. Most people tend to want 20 or 30% more than they can afford. Yes? And if we can right size expectations at the get-go, there will be room for energy efficiency and upgrades that way. So the last part of this then is if we can get the plans right-sized for their money, energy, then if the planning is done good, if they've had time to put their input into the plans, then we're not gonna have energy consumption in the future to fix clunky floor plans or plans that have been hastily put together just because they think they should be building right away. So that's a big energy savings. And then the other part is with getting it to look and feel right. And if there's any timbers involved, that's us. And if we can get that look and feel right, there's not going to be a need to spend resources in the future to fix ugly aesthetics. So what I mean by that is we've even coined a term for it, Hail Mary approach. And this is that hasty decision making and poor planning. And this is just a job that I drove by, took a picture of it, just because I may be a little bit of a timber snob, granted, but this could have been, the resources could have been used better. Had we worked with this, we would have tried first prepping the canvas. You can see maybe lowering the roof, changing the gables. Then once that's done, then you can get some timbers that really fit the style of the homeowner plus the building. And then, man, you're cooking with gas. So the takeaway here is if we can use the solar energy, all these energy codes and all this, and combine it with putting on the brakes and going back to building 101 with rock solid planning, then we're going to really be cooking with gas. And that is how we as a company, that's been our philosophy for a long time, and we promote that, the good planning and the solid investment. And so that is kind of the final takeaway here for you. This is us putting our money where our mouth is. So guys in the office came up with this concept, 740 square feet, in response to the rising cost of living, that if something's going to break, there needs to be another solution. And so this is one plan that has 7 different styles. One example is, this is a modern style. And in this book, we lay out 7 styles as well. The modern style, here is an example of Craftsman. And then we call it compact luxury living. Somebody can downsize, they can live with a very small energy footprint, and this could be used as an ADU. And this could be a conversation starter to get people to think a little bit more about what they actually want. Do they actually need X amount of square footage? Is it really important? Because you could live here quite comfortably with 2 people. And as kind of and you might even say the heavy lifting as green builders and energy conservation is more starting to go along the lines of a cultural shift in how we think, how we live. Am I speaking to the choir, Jared? Good. Okay, so that is, and if any of you are interested in this plan or whatever, we've got it. You can try it out. And we have 7 timber packages that go along with it, provided you want it. And lastly, these 2 books. All you have to do is take out your phones, text timber to 33777, and we're going to put a scrambler in. And with the, it's a digital mixer. Your name will go into a digital hat. Timber to 33777, and then you can walk out with a book. And at the very least, we have an inspiration report newsletter we put out 4 times a year, and that would be digital. You would get it in the email.
Who wrote that book?
This book right here?
That one.
Yeah, this is the book that was Jared mentioned. I guess I wrote it.